A recent study reveals that 79% of people in America believe in miracles, and 35 to 39% report having either experienced or witnessed a miracle personally. What's it like to experience a miracle in the moment? And then once you've experienced a miracle, how do you begin to process it or understand it? In today's story, we're going to consider just that, with an event that was actually caught on videotape and is so miraculous that even CNN anchor Anderson Cooper was gobsmacked on national television. If that's something you like to think about, then welcome to Check Your Head Stories, where we consider the bright side of things that can be quite disturbing, with tales of the miraculous, the curious, and the oddly beautiful. And if you want to help spread the cheer without losing your edge, be sure to like and subscribe. Let's get to it. Check your head. What do you like to think about? Stick around to the end for the actual footage of a miracle caught on tape. It's March of 2015, and you find yourself just about to turn 30. You're in your 10th year on the job as a police officer in the small town of Salt Fork, Utah. And life is good. You enjoy your career. It's just challenging enough not to be boring, but not so hectic that it's stressful. At about 11, you get a call from your wife. She asks if you might be free to meet her and the kids at Zupa's for some lunch. So you agree to meet at noon. About halfway through lunch, you get a call on the radio. There's an unusual call. There's been a car found upside down in the river at the foot of Salt Fork Bridge. As usual, there are only 4 officers on duty in Salt Fork at any one time. And you think that this is probably just an abandoned car situation, but this is a little bit different than your day-to-day routine and your lead officer, so you decide you'd better get over to the site. You apologize to your wife and kids, give them a kiss, and jump in the cruiser. On the way over, you radio to Officer DeWitt. Brian DeWitt and you have been friends for many years, and Brian tells you, yeah, the car's sitting down there. It appears to have been there for quite a while. We're just waiting for the winch to come and pull it out. This seems unusual to you because Salt Fork Bridge is on Main Street. Everyone in town had been driving by all day, so how could no one have seen it? But then you get another call from your friend Brian. This time his voice seems stressed. There's been a report that there is an arm hanging out the window. This changes everything. This might be a rescue effort rather than just removing an abandoned car. You turn on the sirens and press on the accelerator. As you arrive, you see that people are starting to gather at the top of the bridge. You jump out of your cruiser, and as you exit, you remember to press the button on the new body cams that were just issued by the department. As you jog to the top of the slope that heads down into the river, now it makes sense to you why no one's reported it. The way the car has wedged itself under the bridge, it can't be seen from people driving by. As you run down the ravine, you see your 3 fellow officers standing in the ice-cold water examining the car. As you step into the water, there's a jolt to your senses when you realize just how cold this water is. You wade to the car, doing your best to move as quickly as you can through the running water. You do your best to assess the situation. By all appearances, this seems to be a crash with no survivors. What happens next will transform this routine crash investigation into a miraculous brush with the supernatural. Tyler Beddoes was lead officer that day, overseeing Brian DeWitt, Jared Warner, and Paul Tomanakis. The 4 men worked efficiently. The initial investigation showed that this 2009 red Dodge had crashed into the river and was upside down. Inside, they could only see the driver, who appeared to be deceased. The winch hadn't come yet, and the men maneuvered around the vehicle trying to get a better look inside. As they did that, that's when they heard the faint voice of a woman crying, "Help! We're in here!" Officer Warner said, "We're here to help. We're trying. We're doing the best we can." All 4 men had an adrenaline rush, and they did everything they could to push the car over onto its side so they could get to any survivors. Once they were able to position the car on its side, they were able to confirm that the driver was deceased and her wounds were gruesome. But still, someone was inside there and they couldn't see anyone, but they had heard the voice. They forced the rear passenger door open, which was now facing skyward. Officer Tyler peered inside, trying to see someone, but he couldn't. And then all other officers heard him gasp, and he cried out, "Oh my God, there's a baby in there." Jennifer Groesbeck was a 25-year-old single mother of 18-month-old Lilly, and she had every reason to be happy. Her life was on the upswing. She was attending Provo College to become a medical assistant, and she was about to be married to the father of her child. She had spent the day visiting her father, who lived about 5 miles north of Salt Fork, and that evening she prepared to make the 1-hour drive home. She stayed a little bit longer than she'd planned to, and so she was getting a bit tired. Her father tried to convince her to spend the night and just drive home in the morning. He even offered to drive her home, but she assured him, she said, "No, I'm fine, I can do this." So she got Lilly ready for the drive home. She put her in a leopard onesie and then put on a thick sweatshirt and then strapped her into her car seat. She started the drive home, and as she approached Salt Fork, she came to the bridge at the entrance of the town. Inexplicitly, she drove off the road. She did so in just such a way that she missed the trees to the right at the top of the ravine. The trees were just young enough that they would have bent enough that the car would have come to a gentle stop. She also missed the concrete piling on the left that would have caused a collision, but it would have kept her from whizzing into the water. But instead, the car went whizzing between both barriers. The 2 left wheels caught the curb in just such a way that it sent the car spinning as it launched into the air, causing it to crash upside down in 5 feet of icy river water. Jennifer was killed on impact. Baby Lilly was held in her car seat, her head inches away from the running water. She was held there suspended upside down overnight for 14 hours. The officers successfully rolled the car over onto its side. But when they did so, unwittingly, they submerged Lilly right into the water. Although she had hung above the water level for all night, now she was thrust under the water, trapped in her car seat. That's the moment Officer Tyler saw the child. Just as firemen were arriving, thinking fast, they grabbed scissors and were able to free Lilly from her car seat and allowing Officer DeWitt to pull her out, saving her from drowning. The child's body was stiff as it was removed from the water. But then, her eyes began to flutter. Officer Tyler recalls that as he looked into those eyes, the child had a sense of peace and calm despite all she'd been through. The two looked deeply into each other's eyes, and there was an instant connection. Officer Tyler was able to hand the child off to the next person in the human chain, and then the next and the next, until the last officer scrambled up the ravine, where the child was handed off to EMTs, who put a tube down her throat and started the breathing process as she was whisked away in the ambulance. Tyler and another officer were taken to the ambulance to be treated for cuts and hypothermia. They realized just how cold that water was, and they were even more amazed that the baby had been able to survive through the night. The officers who'd been taken to the hospital were treated and released, and they were back on the bridge within an hour. Here they joined the other men who'd been part of the rescue, and they helped them remember the details as they filled out the incident report forms that were all too familiar. And then the men just began to personally debrief. They knew this was going to be a tough one to process. Jennifer's injuries were grotesque, and they knew they were going to be haunted by these images for weeks, months, if not years to come, to say nothing of the trauma that baby Lilly had been through. After they talked about all the things that had happened, there was one detail that had not been mentioned. And then Officer Tyler spoke up, because there was something that was bothering him more than anything else. He said, "Did you guys hear the voice?" There was an awkward silence. Then one of the other officers said, "Yes, I heard it." The other two sighed in relief, said, "Yes, we both heard it." But none of them could figure out where the voice came from. The story went national in only a few hours. All 4 police officers and 3 of the firemen were called upon to appear that night on every major news network throughout the nation to tell the miraculous story of the rescue of baby Lilly. All the reports on all the networks went pretty much the same way. They tell the facts of the story, showing footage of the accident and the mangled car. And then they would cut to the bittersweet footage of a healthy Lilly in the hospital playing and singing songs with her father. And then an interview with him who would talk about how he was overjoyed that Lilly had survived, but that he was brokenhearted about Jennifer and that he was going to miss her every day for the rest of his life. Finally, the report would cut to the 7 officers who'd be sitting in a row. All of the men did a great job of keeping a professional demeanor and answering the questions precisely as they could. But even the casual observer could tell that this particular incident had a deep personal effect on each of the ones being interviewed. All the networks mentioned the voice, some in passing as maybe a curious detail of the story, but it was Anderson Cooper on CNN who pressed it the most. He kept going back to it, looking for clarification, trying to find an explanation. He was intrigued, if not completely befuddled. Even after they were pressed, the best explanation that anyone could give, even on national television, was this was a miracle. This event has been discussed and examined at length for many years, recounting the remarkable circumstances that allowed the crash to happen just the right way at just the right time, resulting in the survival of baby Lilly. The unlikely and precise positioning and trajectory of the car to land in just such a way. Her age and her development made her just large enough, with just the right amount of baby fat left upon her, with just the right amount of clothing to maintain a temperature that helped her stay alive. The temperature of the air was just cold enough that it sent her body into a state where her metabolism slowed down, so all of her organs were protected, but just warm enough that she didn't freeze to death. The flow of the water maintained the same level and never even touched the baby until the car was rolled over. She remained dry the whole time, and despite hanging for 14 hours upside down, there was no organ damage or brain damage, and she was completely fine within a matter of days. The timing and details of this rescue come together in such a remarkable way that it creates a situation that could be called a circumstantial miracle. But it was the voice, that unmistakable voice, that makes this story the stuff of the supernatural. This event has been repeated and analyzed many times since it happened in 2015, and it's been featured in many books and reports. It has marked all those who were part of this experience in ways that are still developing, but by all accounts, these changes have been for the good. I provided links in the description below to the Anderson Cooper interview and also to the body cam footage, and pay special attention to that 2-minute mark because that's when you can hear the voice. As promised, here's the actual body cam footage.
Over here, Beddoes. We're helping, we're coming.
It's undiscernible but completely audible, and you can hear the officers responding to the voice. Check it out, because I already know what I think about this. I'll let you think about it. And I hope you did enjoy thinking about it, because that's what this channel is all about. Like and subscribe and share, because there's more coming here at Check Your Head Stories. See you next time.